appropriate starting configuration. Let's take a look then at how we got here and see if we can come up with some ideas for how to fix this going forward. And some ideas for a message from our sponsor.
MSI! Don't just shop for a laptop, level up your gaming experience with MSI's summer sale event. Check it out at the link below.
It's only fair for me to begin with the advantages of a tightly integrated hardware design because they are real and, in some cases, provide measurable benefits to a platform. Let's start with memory. Have you ever wondered why your GPU doesn't have memory slots the same way your CPU does? I mean, they're certainly capable of being equipped with different capacities. Well, believe it or not, they used to. But this practice fell out of fashion for a number of good reasons. For starters, slots or sockets add complexity and therefore cost to the board design, which will need to be passed along to the end user. And for what? To deal with more compatibility edge cases and user error? And besides, who knows better than the GPU designer what memory configuration would be an ideal match, both for the onboard processing power and for upcoming games? All of which is fair enough, but the biggest reason by far was performance. To address the growing demand for high fidelity visuals, GPUs needed to be fed with ever faster memory. Have you ever wondered why your GPU memory is laid out like this, rather than like this, or like this? The reason is that the shorter you can keep your traces, the connections between your graphics processor and its memory chips, the stronger the signal and the higher you can push your performance. And while GPU makers could theoretically just cover the board in little sockets for RAM chips, the interface pins or the pads or whatever they ended up using would ultimately have the exact same effect of lengthening the traces. That is, that they would harm signal integrity and therefore real-world performance. And we can see this exact same thing in action in modern DDR5 laptops. Have you ever noticed that while you can buy DDR5 SODIMM sticks, they run at much lower speeds compared to systems with LPDDR5 memory soldered to the motherboard? We did a whole video about a new memory module standard that Dell is proposing to overcome this challenge, but the TLDR is that traditional slotted memory modules suffer from signal integrity issues that prevent them from reaching the same speeds as their non-upgradable counterparts. And that puts manufacturers who choose to stick with slots at a performance disadvantage compared to the ones that don't. And this disadvantage extends to more than just performance. From some quick digging, DDR5 slots appear to be much more expensive than DDR4 slots, adding as much as $8 each to the cost of the machine, while also taking up valuable internal space that could be used for cooling or just to make the device slimmer and sexier. So this trend isn't reversing. And in fact, it's accelerating. LPDDR5X is coming in at speeds of up to 8,500 mega transfers per second. That is double what we can get from a DDR5 SODIMM. And, surprise, surprise, it needs to be even closer to the processor in order to achieve these speeds, with ASUS using a technique that they're calling SOM, or System on Module, to hit 7,467 mega transfers per second. What's SOM, you ask?
Can't use that yet.
Well, basically, it's exactly what Apple's been doing ever since the introduction of their M1 Apple Silicon, where they took the system memory that they were already soldering to the motherboard and moved it onto the same package as the processing die. Which, I guess, is actually a pretty strong argument for integration, am I right? I mean, Apple Silicon is pretty impressive from a performance and efficiency standpoint. But here's where I think it becomes clear that this whole trend was never just about performance. Why is storage being soldered down? Every argument that we've considered for memory, the extra thickness it adds to the machine, the high cost of the interface, the performance, all of it falls apart completely for storage, which almost exclusively runs over PCI Express in modern laptops. And while PCI Express certainly has its own signal integrity challenges to overcome over the next decade or so, it is designed to scale to the data center level and can easily run at the distance between a storage chip and the controller. This is where the tinfoil hat comes out a little bit then, but hold on, don't tune out, because I think I can demonstrate why I think that this just comes straight down to maintaining a monopoly on upgrade parts. All we gotta do is follow the money. because the profit that can be captured by doing this is astounding. Now, Apple is not the only company to have taken the step of soldering down the door, but they are the only one that's brazen enough to make barriers in place to prevent users from upgrading even their non-SSDs. So we're going to be picking on them a little bit. I want to start by going back to memory. Apple appears to have decided that 8 gigabytes of memory costs $200. That same figure pops up whether we go from 8 to 16 or from 16 to 24. By comparison, if Apple had heroically charged us a little bit more even for our memory slots, the average price we pay for a single 8 gig DDR5 sodium is around $200. And even if we assume rightly that we're using premium memory chips and we go with the highest price we found, that's $60. This is still $140 less than what Apple wants for that exact same capacity. Where else in the consumer electronics industry do you get away with a 300% markup? Oh, don't worry. We found someone. Let's talk about storage. The SSD in a MacBook is not magic. As I mentioned before, PC, Mac, they're all using the PCI Express bus and NVMe protocol, just like the M.2 drive that you would stick into a PC or for that matter, a PlayStation. The only real difference is they built the controller for the flash storage chips into their Apple Silicon rather than using discrete. Oh, and I guess they also limited themselves to flash chips, while discrete drives can have space for 4 or more, which improves capacity at the cost of, well, as with Apple's RAM, we can't necessarily source using for storage, but just like with the RAM, we can ballpark it to give you some idea what's going on here. The sweet spot for commodity SSDs is about 2 terabytes. These will cost around $100 and use 4 512 GB NAND chips, which means the cost to manufacture each of those must be well under $25. In Apple's base models, they're using only a single NAND chip. You've probably seen the stories talking about the reduced storage and what that means is that upgrading a MacBook Air or a 13-inch MacBook Pro to 512 gigabytes is really just adding a second.
You want to play? Let's play.
Which at the current price of around 6 cents a gig is going to set Apple back $16 if they were paying retail market pricing. They're not. Then again, of course, that's right. Apple wants a whopping $200 from you for that extra 256 gigabytes. That is more than 12 times the real price of that chip integrated into a different product. I mean, that is just wow. And Apple's not the only one doing it. The configurator for the Dell XPS 13 2-in-1 allows me to go from 512 gigs to 1 terabyte for, wait for it, $150 US. Might look downright reasonable next to Apple, especially considering how usable that base configuration is. So you'll have to go. Oh, I didn't even include this in the script, but iCloud, of course. Just pay the monthly for iCloud instead. Okay, that's a whole other level to it. I need my hat back. No, it doesn't matter. What matters is that in either case, the SSD is likely the most profitable component of either of these machines, which might be worth it if they were doing something super performant or they were extra reliable or something. That's what Investors Framework does, where they lay out exactly what model will be using and compare prices and decide if it's worth it. But instead, brands like Apple and Dell are simply putting in whatever they like, regardless of the performance impact. Again, like we saw with those single-chip MacBook SSDs. So then, what's the solution here? Well, it's going to sound pretty wild, but I'm not actually asking Apple to take less margin on their products, or even mark up their prices. Contrary to the narrative, Apple isn't even an obscenely profitable company. They operate at about 40% gross margin. That's a little higher than Intel, similar to us on lttstore.com. By the way, Knoxville Edition screwdrivers coming soon. Sign up for a notification at the link down below. And actually much lower than others in the technology space, like Google, NVIDIA, and Texas Instruments. All I'm really asking for is misleading starting app pricing to disappear. The performance claims that they make are nearly always based on a juiced up config that costs, in some cases, double or more compared to that palatable starting at. And all of this is because of those awful starting configs that are by design barely enough for today, let alone for 5 years from now, and because of the ever-growing markups on the upgrade parts that can only be obtained from the manufacturer. So I guess I am asking for them to charge a little less for the upgrades. And while I'm at it, I'm also asking for some consideration for the longevity of this hardware. I mean, okay, keep the configurator prices high. Most customers aren't gonna run out and source upgrade parts anyway, so you might as well profit from them. But for the ones that do want to, swappable components would be a godsend. Here's a couple ideas for how to do it. For RAM, we'll link the video we did on the CAM standard, which would bring a big improvement over SODIMMs and even enable modular LPDDR. But even if CAM doesn't take off, there's been an interesting uptick in enthusiasts who are performing DIY upgrades to soldered components on everything from phones to GPUs. And so I guess all I'm asking then is if you must have your integrated memory because of unified memory access for the CPU, GPU, whatever, just please don't make any further moves towards locking down hardware swaps. I mean, maybe that's the solution in the longer term. As robotics and automation get cheaper year by year. I mean, remember when Scotty from Strange Parts blew the world away with his video showing off the cottage industry players in China that made it possible for him to build a new iPhone completely from scratch? Well, maybe it won't be that long before your neighborhood computer shop has a robot arm in the back that can do quick, reliable component swaps, adding more memory to your MacBook or more storage to your phone, even if everything is all soldered to the mainboard. What I know isn't the solution is just the trade-in and recycling programs that are already there. They're going to be part of it, but there's a far greater environmental impact in producing 1,000 complete computers, even with some recycled materials, compared to producing 1,000 chips of memory for upgrades to existing ones. I mean, Apple wouldn't need to recycle 1,000 more computers down the line if they could have just been upgraded to be more functional in the first place, could they? And you can still sell them iCloud storage, just like I can sell you this segue to our sponsor.
Away with you. Charge your ults.
Satchel out. Satchel out.
Stage 2.
Grenade. Satchel out.
over! You're dead!
Grenade! One down. Go get it.
Hey,
Jet's grounded. Wait for me.
Charge your hopes.
My ult's ready.
that's free.
10 seconds until stage change.
See ya! Get out of my way!
Final stage.
You are powerless!
Wow.
Can't use that. Grenade! Got him.
So long. My ult is ready.
Here comes it! Satchel out. Bomb buddy out.
Trời ơi, má đẩy nó.
Cutting baby.
You lose.
Precision kill. Wait for me. Satchel out. Satchel out.
Joke's over! You're dead!
Paging raise.
À.
Okay.
Toaster is broken.
Get out.
Still in sight.
Satchel out.
You are powerless!
5 kills left. Ultimate orb spawn.
Cutting the rift.
Get out of my way. Jet's grounded.
Reloading.